I'm missing a counselor. Oh, there we are. See, your pink is a different color now too, Councillor Hamlin. See, mine's now full on red.
Okay, Hamlin, you're live.
Excellent. It'll be
Chair McLeod.
Who's actually doing it. Thank you so much. Threw me off just for a second. And so we begin the regular business of the Town of Collingwood Council meeting here on February the 22nd. It is now a minute after 5 o'clock. And we have had an in-camera meeting. We do have regrets for this meeting from Mayor Saunderson. And of course, Deputy Mayor Hall remains on his leave of absence. And we have a council vacancy. And Councillor Madigan has provided regrets for a certain amount of the meeting. We're hoping that he will join us before it is over. But that is why you see such a reduced number of people today. Small but mighty. Hopefully small but effective. And with that, I will ask Councillor Jeffrey if she would be so kind as to read our land acknowledgement to begin our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst us all of the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation.
Thank you. Item 6 on our agenda tonight is the reaffirmation of the Council Code of Conduct. And it is the 18 rules by which we live. Of course, we have recently changed and updated our Code of Conduct only 2 months ago, I believe. So most of us are very much familiar with it. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Clerk Allness.
Certainly. Sorry, Chair McLeod. I'm just wondering now, since we do have a number of absences, if we would like to place this on our next regular agenda. And at that point, we may even have a new councillor joining us.
I think that would be fine. We can, although we have approved the agenda, do we have to do anything special to make that happen other than move to defer?
If we don't have a mover and seconder at this point, we'll just carry it over to our first council meeting on the 21st, if that works.
On the 28th of February, you mean? Or, yeah.
Yes.
Totally fine. So everyone stay silent and we'll move on. Adoption of minutes. Item number 7 is a regular meeting of council held January the 31st of 2022. And so I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the minutes of the council meeting held January 31st, 2022 be approved as presented. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Berman and Councillor Jeffrey. And any comments or questions, errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And none opposed. Item 7.2, item business arising from the previous meeting minutes, or previous meeting rather. Are there any items arising from those minutes? I see none. We move on to community announcements, and trying to think of the order. I think it's Councillor Berman who goes first. Or is it Councillor Doherty? Oh, Councillor Doherty. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just one announcement tonight. Theatre Collingwood is presenting, I guess it's the 3rd annual Girls' Night Out comedy event in celebration of International Women's Day, which this year is on Monday, March 8th. Due to very popular demand, in fact, the tickets for March 8th sold out in less than half a day. So they have added a second event on Sunday at the same time, 7 o'clock at the Legion, and tickets are still available at last check for that Sunday night as well. So that's Sunday, March 7th and Sunday, March 8th. And that's it for me, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just briefly talk hockey because I feel like I've been living at the Eddie Bush for the last week and a half. There have been 5 home games in the past week plus. Just an update on the team. First of all, with our overtime win against Aurora yesterday, we moved up and tied them for second place in the league, which would put us in the playoffs. Top 3 teams make the playoffs, and we are comfortably ahead of that pace, so we will be in the playoffs. We checked the OHL website. We currently lead the league in attendance, 2nd year in a row. We have the league leading penalty kill unit. We are leading the league in shorthanded goals. I'm looking to Councillor Jeffrey because probably none of this surprises her. In the last 7 games since they've come out of that iteration of the lockdown, we've won 6 and lost 1 in overtime. So that's really good news. And there was some a very good news story that came out a couple hours before the game started yesterday. And I'd like to do it justice. So I'd like to ask maybe the CAO or Director Culver if he could let us know what happened.
Thank you. Director Culver has appeared on my screen, so I will go to him. Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair and Councillor Berman. Yeah, so in a community rental of facility prior to the start of the junior hockey game, an individual on the ice went down with what apparently turned out to be a heart attack. Staff reacted, and fortunately, the junior team trainer for the Blues, as well as I believe the Aurora Tigers trainer, was also available to support. They were able to defibrillate the individual, bring them back to consciousness, and assist with them being transported to the hospital, where we understand that they're stable. It was a really good news story. We're really so grateful for the trainer for the Collingwood Blues and the trainer from the Tigers as well. And also very proud of staff who reacted quickly and in line with training that they've received and what we hope for in the best of our staff. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
That is a good news story. I appreciate that, and thank you, Councillor Berman, for bringing it to our attention. Is that the end of you? Excellent. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing as awesome as the Councillor Berman's and the director's report, but the virtual coldest night of the year event is ongoing for this weekend, and our council challengers team is still soliciting support for our team. So anyone out there who hasn't supported someone else and would like to contribute to our youth, our vulnerable youth, we would love it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you. My announcement tonight is to recognize that we have a new arts network in our area, currently going by the name of South Georgian Bay Arts Network. It grew out of the work of the Institute of South Georgian Bay, who's long recognized that arts and culture is such an important driver of our local economy and of course contributes to creativity in the healthy region. Because of a philanthropic donation of someone in our area, the network's already been able to hire a coordinator. Her name is Amber Ebert. Amber's been living in our region now for 3 years and comes with 15 years experience. So working with arts organizations. So hopefully we'll see more of her in and about town. And they're going to be launching an online platform, which will be a place for both the broader local community and year-round visitors to access information about arts events taking place. And just also say the partners who are supporting this are Theatre Collingwood, Blue Mountain Foundation for the Arts, and the South Georgian Bay Tourism. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hamlin. And I have 3 brief announcements to make today. You'll notice, anyone who is watching, that most of us are wearing something that includes the color pink. This is pink, I swear. It's just perhaps the screens are not capturing the vagaries of the colors. Of course, Pink Shirt Day was started back in 2007, I think, somewhere out east. There was a child who wore a pink shirt to school, was bullied unmercifully for it. And a couple of guys decided to stand up for him and wore pink shirts themselves. And oh, I always get teary when I tell that story. Sorry. And so it became like a worldwide movement. And so here we are today, all of us wearing pink as well in support of the bullied. And tomorrow we're going to raise the anti-bullying flag at the library. And now that restrictions have been lifted, we can certainly allow a certain number of people to join with us at that event. And that's at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I believe we're also lighting up the clock tower today in honor of lifting each other up. So it's tomorrow actually that is Pink Shirt Day, but because we're meeting today, here we are in our pink. I also want to bring attention to the fact that today is the National Day to raise awareness of human trafficking. And this was it's a national thing to keep in mind. We of course know a little bit about human trafficking. We had a dreadful story here a couple of years ago about that. And earlier today at Simcoe County Council, a motion from the town of New Tecumseh was passed, and that will be coming to our table in the not too distant future for our endorsement as well. Thirdly, I'd like to invite anyone who has not yet and wants to register to attend the Mayor's Levee on Sunday afternoon. We are going to be honoring a group of people who richly deserve the Order of Collingwood. And that is taking place at 1 o'clock at what used to be known as Georgian Manor Hotel. And we'd be delighted to see anybody who wants to show up. I believe, will there be snacks, Clerk Almus? I believe there may even be snacks. Oh, no, we can't have snacks. COVID. Anyway, there's still room for a few people who would like to show up, and we would be delighted to see as many people as we are allowed to have inside the building. And Clerk Almus, perhaps you can tell us even more than I know about this.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair McLeod. We have been working very closely with the health unit. So unfortunately, there is not snacks. There is refreshment beverages that will be available. However, we are still limited by capacity. So there is a pre-registration that's required. So I direct anybody to our Town of Collingwood website, and you can seek out the details there or call into our customer service here at Town Hall and they can direct you.
Thank you so much. I knew that was the detail that I was missing. I appreciate that. And with that, we will move on to item number, we also want to speak, there's a community announcement regarding Heritage Week, which was actually supposed to happen prior to the council members speaking. However, we will rectify that right now and invite Cathy de Ruiter, the chair of the Collingwood Heritage Committee, and Jennifer McEwen, who is the vice chair of the Collingwood Heritage Committee, to talk to us about Heritage Week. Hello. Cathy and Jennifer, hello.
Oh, hi. I'm not sure. Is Jennifer with us?
I believe that that she's just now.
Oh, there she is. I see her
There we
now.
are. Hi,
I've been sitting here waiting for you guys for a long time.
Well, thank you so much for being so patient. We apologize for taking up more of your time than you might have liked. We'd like to invite you to talk to us about Heritage Week, please.
Oh, am I up like right now, the second?
Yeah, here we are.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank the council for seeing us tonight. It's been a year since the last Heritage Week, and it's certainly gone by fast, and there's lots to update, so I'll go quickly so I don't use up my time. I'm going to start with a little bit of history of Collingwood and facts that you might not know, going into accomplishments, ongoing and current, and then moving forward with goals. Now, most of this stuff is on the PowerPoints. So if you haven't read through some of it, you'll have it there for reference, because I won't be able to read each and every slide. We'd be here till midnight. So again, the committee would like to welcome everybody, and we'd also like to acknowledge the First Nations walking on and caring for our land for about 50,000 years, if I have that number right. You'll see next slide, a nice picture of the downtown Main Street. There's a little bit of history there you can always refer back to. And a picture of an older picture of the shipyards. Now, looking at some of the history of Collingwood, again, I'm not reading all of them off, just the ones that sort of are will be pertinent. We had our fire in 1880, and of course had to rebuild most of the downtown core between 1880 and early 1900s. You can see that next slide. Yes, heritage conservation committees. We've gone through a lot of different economical times since the town was rebuilt, wars and various economical times and many challenges. And they didn't really start to get together these committees until the early 1970s. That's sort of when they started, and it's taken a while to get them all together. But I think you'll find in any of the literature from the associations, the language is pretty clear and the goals seem to be match up pretty much across the board. And the people that got involved in the 70s did it out of passion, really. They, throughout the years from the war, they've slowly rebuilt and maintained these places, and they'll stand a lot longer as a result, and hopefully they'll be with us for a very long time. The next slide you'll see is from 1980, our first designation, and that's now known as the Toronto Ski Club, and that's some of our earlier members. And I think we have a lot to be proud of. We've accomplished a lot over those years, and again, I think that if money never entered into this, nobody would ever lean on the side of tearing these homes down, or very few would. It's just, I think that the people who have kept them up, because these houses have lasted through generations, they were built to last through generations, not to be flipped every 10 years. I think they would stand the test of time, but I believe it's more out of the desire to keep them and the passion that has gone to so much work over the years without community support. And, we've had better economical times, which has helped. But, people say they're very expensive to maintain. But when you buy a car, you don't buy a Mercedes if you can't afford the parts. So that's sort of how I look at it. It's an investment, and they do get their investments back because the properties are worth more. But again, I think we should be very grateful for that, in spite of all the obstacles that these people have faced. And we even most recently, certainly financial has entered into the picture a lot with COVID. It's affected staff resources and volunteering, etc. So our next slide is that's 1973 shipyard. Community support is certainly huge, and we need to foster that. And we've had a lot of community support that we should be grateful for, and public participation, and certainly financial assistance is incredibly helpful. I'm sure if you ask the other areas who have invested in their areas, they would agree. So there's a map of our Collingwood district, which came to be the first municipality in Canada in 2002 to have a heritage district. So I guess next slide, moving on to accomplishments. So we've accomplished actually quite a bit this year. The Wikipedia page, which I understand will be fully up and running by 2003. Cathy, who's done a ton of work on taking photos for our inventory for SharedPoint. We had the support of the funds for reprinting the heritage brochures, heritage awards for Blackfellows and 33 St. Marie Street, as well as doing the Heritage Week, and support for the Part 4 designations, we've supported a lot of different things this year, various heritage projects, for example, Dorchester and the Annex, and giving support to the BIA for their downtown mural project. Patricia, we owe thanks to for taking part in the Downtown Modernization Committee, and the entrance feature is another thing that we gave support to, as well as volunteer and various activities that we take part in. We had a Part 4 designation that is now there's an intention for that designation for Birch Street. And again, lots of volunteering. And thanks to the council for last year's decision to go forward with an increase in our rebate for the tax relief. So we're now at 20%. We will be back. That'll be on our goal list to have that increased, even if incrementally, until we can match what many of the municipalities that surround us are offering. And that incentive is very important. I'm sure that some of these other communities that have heritage districts will vouch for the increase in financial gain that they get for keeping the heritage districts up and running. So many thanks for that increase for last year. Grants is something that we also will be back talking to you about this next year. We sit at 3,000 maximum per property. And you can see from this chart, I guess we got to move forward here, Stephanie. Next slide. We see from the grant chart here that our maximum per property is 3,000. And then you get areas like Oakville at 15 and Niagara residential at 10. Now, Niagara on the Lake has 150 designations in their area, which is half of what we have. And their budget amount is 70,000. And I think our budget is 40. One thing I will say that I found out was that 35% of that $70,000 budget for Niagara comes from their parking. So just that little tidbit for the accountant, if that might help in some way. And emergency preparedness is another thing that we'll be coming forward with. I'm not quite sure what that entails, but many of you probably remember the tornado that went through in August of 2011. So our awards coming up that we have nominated, we have 242 3rd Street. There's a little bit of history on that one, as well as Minnesota Street, number 240. A little bit of history there for you. Beautiful homes maintained by the owners, so they don't have the benefit of corporate write-offs that some of the other properties in the commercial core would have. But they've done a really, really nice job. It's nice to see people care enough to do that much work. And we have a designation, as I mentioned, the intention for designation for Birch Street. Terminals we're going to keep an eye on as well. Let's see where we might be able to help. Goals and priorities. Let me just get, so I'm following, where are we at? Yeah, we should be, next one, Steph. Yeah, and then the next one is goals and priorities. So to migrate the heritage platform is not until 2023. We want to do a bit more IT stuff, developing a resource list for suggested materials, enhance the brochures, continue to promote Heritage Week and annual awards program, the emergency preparedness, support and participate in Doors Open. Continue to support various heritage products and community organizations. Continue with the Part 4 designations. Continue to advocate for increase in tax relief grant program and obtain commitment from council to increase the reserve fund. And there are other things that we could be, let's see, we've got continuing to follow the district's bylaws to improve property communications with property owners and to improve our stop work orders. But again, I'd like to say that we have a lot that we can be proud of here, and the work that's been done up to date. These buildings, if we can go to the next slide, Steph. That's our that was the bank, but it's the federal building now. And if we don't take care of these buildings and they get let go and allowed to fall apart, they're never going to be built again. That's it. They're gone. They're gone forever. We won't get them back. And I do believe in my heart, like nobody wants hardship. None of us from even the committee here, and I know owners probably feel that. The biggest obstacle with homeowners, I think, is financial, because I do believe nobody wants hardship on anybody. We'd love to see this be very easy for people to do and very affordable. But like, if we let these things go, then they're gone for good. Many thanks to all the people that do help us with our committee, the staff, etc. I know with COVID, there's been many challenges. So that would be maybe another goal, is to reach out for us, maybe to reach out for a bit more support from the town and the community with different things, IT issues. I believe that the committee is very, very fortunate to have somebody like Cathy at the chair. She has a history with the town. She knows where everything is down there. She knows what's down there to help everyone. So you're in good hands with Cathy. And
Ms. McEwen, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
Because of time constraints. But we do so appreciate what you've brought to us. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and have a good evening.
Is there does Ms. Ruiter want to contribute anything to this presentation, or are we?
Just my thanks to Jennifer. She was the previous chair, and she's done a lot for the committee and continues to do so. I'll look forward to seeing our new membership coming up and who we might have for next time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and happy Heritage Week.
Yes,
you as well.
Involved with Girl Guiding at all, you'll see that the town hall is lit up blue this evening, and it's in recognition of World Thinking Day, my other hat that I just put on.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you again.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 9, which is not dissimilar to what we've just had, which is a deputation in addition to the community announcement regarding Heritage Week. And with that, I will invite Margaret Mooy on behalf of the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, and I believe deputations get 10 minutes. So we will thank you to join us, Ms. Mooy. I believe she's still connecting to audio. And can you hear and see us, Ms. Mooy?
I can see you. Can you hear me?
We can. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. So council, staff, committee members, and community, my name is Margaret Mooy. I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario and the Collingwood branch. Next slide. To give some background to those who have not heard of ACO, the Architectural Conservancy is the largest voice for heritage in Ontario. Through education, advocacy, and direct action, the Architectural Conservancy has been involved in preserving Ontario's architectural, environmental, and cultural heritage since 1933. Next slide. The Conservancy in Ontario currently has 17 branch communities. Collingwood is one of those branches. Next slide. Tonight's presentations are to celebrate Heritage Week. Heritage Day itself will be taking place on Wednesday, February 23rd, tomorrow. It's an opportunity to advocate directly to MPPs on important heritage issues. This week is also an opportunity to highlight the work of heritage volunteers and professionals in Collingwood and across the province. Next slide. With climate change and climate action at the forefront of local global discussions, ACO's message for Heritage Day 2022 will focus on leveraging the environmental and economic benefits of Ontario's older buildings. Next slide. Collingwood has numerous examples of restoration and adaptive reuse. These are examples of the green side of architectural conservation. And of course, demolition is a destructive approach. And then a quote from the CBC opinion, no matter how humble Canada's architecture, it is a renewable resource that can help us meet sustainability goals. Next slide. Recently, I received a letter from the president of the provincial office of ACO concerning the Housing Affordability Task Force. This task force, undeniably important, waded into discussions of heritage. And again, they do have an important mandate, I agree with that, but their recommendations on heritage policy could have far-reaching and destructive consequences here in Collingwood. Making recommendations of heritage is usually the responsibility of the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Cultural Industries. It is believed that the following recommendations that they have made could have far-reaching and destructive consequences. Their report addressed obligatory payment to property owners for designation, municipal heritage listing practices, and prohibiting new heritage protections after planning application has started. As I said, I've just received this letter, but I think it bears future investigation to see how this itself could affect Collingwood's heritage. Next slide. You have all heard the adage, it takes a village to raise a child. In this case, it takes community groups working together to preserve and to protect our heritage. Community groups working together towards a common goal to support Collingwood's heritage can only add strength in preserving and in protecting our heritage. And you can see by the slide the many groups that continue to work together. Next slide. Last week at the Development and Operations Committee, you heard about the accomplishments, goals, and priorities of the Heritage Committee. Because we share a common philosophy, ACO has supported the Collingwood Heritage Committee by offering resources, contributing to discussions, and participating in community advocacy groups. We have valued our seat at the Heritage Committee table this year and hope that Council will support a renewal of this project. Next slide. We are hopeful that once COVID allows for larger gatherings, we would like to reschedule the joint ACO Heritage Committee workshop on wooden windows that had been planned, then canceled due to COVID. Next slide. As an ACO representative on the Heritage Committee, I have taken on the responsibility of reporting on updating walking tours, expansion of the Heritage District, Collingwood terminals, and I have also liaised with the Accessibility Committee. ACO itself, our Collingwood branch, has also contributed to the Downtown Modernization Project, and previously to the official plan and strategic initiatives. Next slide. Last year, ACO recommended that the Heritage Committee develop a Wikipedia site and update the Heritage website. And you've heard that the Wikipedia site is now available, and the updates to the website are still pending, although I heard some good news at the Heritage meeting today that this is being planned for the future. It has been a challenge addressing the variety and the scope of some of the issues of heritage when over time staff resources have been reduced from one full-time, and you can see it's a 0.3, to only 1/3 of community planners TECO's time. As well, we no longer have council representation on the committee. And historically, the committee had the support of the building department with both Cathy de Ruiter and Ron Martin as staff supporters. We also had Director Farr at one time, followed by community planner Candace Bondarchuk. So you can see that the resources have been, to my mind, drastically reduced. Hopefully in the future, we can do something about this. Next slide. As a local branch, we continue our use of social media in an effort to reach out to the community about issues that impact the cultural and built heritage of Collingwood. Most recently, we posted a survey on heritage property insurance from National Trust Canada at the request of planner TECO. We are also attempting to build community awareness of architectural styles and of features of historic building attributes. And in the planning process will be postings of interesting porch designs. Next slide. Unfortunately, you saw this slide last year as well. And these same properties are still on the provincial endangered properties to protect list. The good news is that after 14 years of advocating, the Victoria Annex has the protection of a Part 4 designation. As well, it now has protection against the elements on the roof. And the present owner has presented to the Heritage Committee and is proceeding with an adaptive reuse project. The Nottawasaga Lighthouse continues to have a committed group that continues to work towards restoration. The Collingwood terminals does have some good news going forward, that the town is addressing many of the needs and has recently had a built heritage assessment done and is moving towards the RFP process. Although the building itself continues to require restoration to many areas of the building to protect the terminals from demolition by neglect. Next slide.
Ms. Mooy, I'm going to advise you that your time is very close to up.
Right, I just have 2 more slides.
Okay.
It is important to continue to encourage heritage designations outside the Heritage Conservation District. Maintaining our tree-lined streetscapes and boulevards is important, as there are presently many infill projects happening with resulting demands on green space. It's also important to complete heritage impact assessments when new construction is adjacent to a property with a heritage designation. Hopefully the home that you see in the picture will be presented to Collingwood, a council, in the near future for a Part 4 heritage designation. Next slide. Looking ahead, ACO Collingwood continues to want building community partnerships to strengthen Collingwood's rich and vital heritage. Our strong heritage builds on the pillars of society to provide a sustainable community with cultural vitality, strong economic health, environmental responsibility, and community involvement. And in red, heritage gives us a sense of place and gives us our communities their identity. We as members of ACO want to preserve and to protect our heritage. Last slide. council, staff, community, thank you for your support of heritage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us and talking to us. Clearly, very passionate group. Does anyone, do any council members have questions for Ms. Mooy? Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time then. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you very much for listening.
That brings us to item number 10 on our agenda, which is the interim control bylaw update. And I will look to CAO Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. I believe there is the normal presentation. Next slide, please. So this presentation, as all the council members know, and those who are regular watchers will also know, is provided each week according to the resolution that council directed staff to do so. So we have included the items that council specified. Next slide, please. And the situation hasn't changed from last week. A couple of highlights include that we do have a water supply that's safe and available. The council has been very proactive as soon as they were made aware. We've all been very transparent in our approach, and we do have an interim control bylaw in place to temporarily and transparently pause development so that the people of Collingwood can continue to have the water they need to grow as a complete community until we expand the water treatment plant in 2025 or early 2026. So far, through an exemptions process in 2021 and into early 2022, ready-to-go development applications have been approved, and most residential renovations and additions can continue. If you have, for example, an accessory apartment or something that you would like to do, please talk to the building or planning departments and they can advise you about moving forward. We have maximized our chlorine, and we have some new ultraviolet treatment expected in later in 2022 or early 2023. So we're closing in on having enough water to meet our expected growth, but we're not all the way there. So we'll talk about some of the other things we're doing as we walk through this brief presentation. Next slide, please. First half is about water capacity, so that's the plant itself. And the big change this week is that we have had an acceleration in the staff discussions at the working with, sorry, I put an acronym in there. New Tecumseh is new NT, and Collingwood. And we've walked through a number of items that were not quite worked out to be able to recommend moving forward to our councils. However, we're whittling that list down to a much lower number. And the next meeting is the mid next week, just after the next update to council. So that's looking positive. No other changes on this slide. Next slide, please. Also, no changes in the overall schedule for the project, and we are tracking to complete the items that are shown and have been previously presented to council on schedule. Next slide, please. The remaining water supply also has not changed since council's last decision on a small number of exemptions. So we have remaining right now 493 single development units available to allocate over the next 4 years. And once the ultraviolet is in place, that middle number on the bottom row, the 1,283 will be available to allocate. We also have a factor of safety that has been retained to date. Next slide, please. The exemptions are meant to get us through the land use planning study and the post-study period during the interim control bylaw. And afterwards, water will be managed according to the study recommendations. So if you've been granted an exemption, please proceed through the planning and building permit processes and seek your building permit to move forward with your development. Next slide, please. The second half of this is about the planning policy study and its outcomes. So this is for those with good eyes, and it's the same. It has not, the base hasn't changed lately. We've just moved the big green arrow one more week to the right. And so we are on track to proceed to the presentation of a final allocation policy. And I'm going to go into some more dates in the next slide, please. So there's something I need to explain at the beginning of this slide. We do have a zoning bylaw amendment report that was endorsed by committee and is coming, is in the council package for a decision this evening. However, there was technical clarification required firstly, and that is that the Planning Act does not permit the passing of a bylaw until after the study or review triggered by the interim control bylaw is completed. And staff did consider that the land use planning policy study, when it was presented to committee and council in December, to be complete, with the recommendation of the three products being the zoning bylaw amendment, the official plan policies, and the servicing capacity allocation policy. And they had a separate implementation streams and were ratified by council in December on the 20th, 2021. However, we want to make sure that this is very clear to everyone and wish to clarify this by a resolution at the next council meeting, which would be 1 week from today, and that resolution can be published in the agenda for all to review. Secondly, a delay in the zoning bylaw amendment decision would assist with another primary concern that was identified by those we consulted regarding timing. We did receive several letters indicating that for some members of the development community, the decision regarding whether to appeal the zoning bylaw was tied to the content and final form of the servicing capacity allocation policy. So a short delay, i.e. till next Monday, on the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment would ensure that the appeal period remains open and overlaps with council's decision on the servicing capacity allocation policy, allowing the final approved version to be publicly available prior to the appeal period expiring. So when that comes up on the agenda today, it would be our recommendation that a 1 week deferral would be prudent for council to consider tonight. Following on from that, the other dates that are coming up, so starting with the second bullet on this slide, so council next week would be the confirming the land use planning policy study is complete. The council decision that could have happened tonight on the zoning bylaw amendment report. Then in the Strategic Initiatives Committee at the beginning of March, we would have a final interim control bylaw exemptions report. If you recall, council had set a date for the final exemptions, so that will be the final ones. Assuming we are able to lift the interim control bylaw, then we wouldn't need any more exemptions. At Development and Operations Committee, and then subsequently council in March, we would have the proposed servicing capacity allocation policy, and that would include all of the input from the second round of consultations. And as that decision February 28th council is the last day of February, so it actually be the very beginning of March when the zoning bylaw amendment notice of decision was published. And in late March, it would be the last day for the zoning bylaw amendment appeals. So we're down to the brass tacks here, and we hope we're bringing this period to an end and moving forward to a new era of water allocation in Collingwood. And I'll just note that final item at the bottom: if the zoning bylaw is appealed, the interim control bylaw is automatically extended. So we hope that won't be the case, and we'll be able to move into a more clear process moving forward. Next slide. These haven't changed, so I'm not going to go into the details, but largely here, if you look at the 479 single development units of water that were allocated by exemptions, you can see that 295 SDUs or 61% have been issued, and an additional 62 SDUs or 13% are under review. So developers and homeowners have been moving forward with their exemptions relatively well, but is about 19% of the water that has not yet had a building permit applied for. And that's the end of the update today. There is one more slide that hasn't changed from last week, which just looks at the water allocation and building permits through a different lens. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Skinner. Are there any questions or comments or concerns from members of council tonight? I see none, which brings us to item number 11, which is reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And we have 3 of them. The one of which is 11.1, which is item C 2022-06, the Board and Advisory Committee's annual report. So that's the Collingwood Public Library Board and the Collingwood Police Services Board. And I believe actually that we have a presentation on this. And so I will invite that to begin. And that will be whom? That will be Clerk Alness.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. I'll just provide a very brief introduction. Again, this is a requirement of our community-based strategic plan that has all of our advisory committees and reports reporting back through their standing committees and council. And oh, I forgot that was part of the presentation, so I'm already getting into it. And this is actually our last set of boards that report directly to council and not through a standing committee. And so this evening we do have the library board and the police services board. And I'd like to again extend from the staff perspective a sincere thanks to our dedicated chairs and volunteers of our committees and boards, and thank them for their hard work throughout their year and their diligence in working through their goals that they have established for 2022. And it looks like we have the chair of our library board, Nina, available now.
Hello. I will just wait one moment. I think Collingwood Police Services is up there. Do you want me to go first?
We can forward through to the library board, and we'll have perfect.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share Collingwood Public Library Board's 2021 accomplishments. It was quite a year. I'd like to thank Vice Chair Margaret Adolph, our board members, Annie Schaefer, Marianne Lipa, Peter Cathcart, and Sarah May, as well as our council representative, Councillor Berman, and our committee secretary, Stephanie, for their time, talent, and enthusiasm. To summarize our accomplishments, with the guidance of our volunteer consultant, Robin Heald, who gave us countless hours and support through the process, we worked through a strategic planning process with an emphasis on welcoming community and stakeholder participation. Our 2-year strategic plan was approved and shared publicly last fall, and Ashley also presented to council in that time frame. Following an annual schedule, we reviewed and updated various library policies, and we continue to adhere to that schedule to make sure that we have all the legislated pieces covered. We accepted notice of retirement from CEO Ken Haig and completed a robust hiring process, which resulted in the appointment of a new Chief Executive Officer, Ashley Kulchicki. During the transition period, when Ashley was acting CEO and then into CEO, the board supported Ashley with an organizational review and an update of the job descriptions to meet the library's changing service needs and change in some long-term staff positions. The board also provided input to the regional government review, and we continue to monitor developments related to the library service review and service delivery task force. We provide ongoing support for the procedures and processes necessary for safe reopening strategies through various stages of the pandemic, and as that changes daily sometimes, to respond to the legislation in the best way that we can serve the community. Ashley and the committed team at the Collingwood Public Library have truly worked diligently to provide excellent service to our community through the pandemic. We would like to acknowledge their continued efforts to provide equitable access to innovative services while offering opportunities for learning, connecting, and discovery. A heartfelt thank you to the staff, volunteers, patrons, and all library supporters. As we look toward 2022, we look forward to opening a world of possibilities, to embracing information, learning, technology, knowledge, and serving the evolving needs of our dynamic community. Our priorities include implementation of the strategic plan and development of a land acknowledgement for the library. If you haven't been to the library recently to see it in action, we welcome a visit. Thank you to all.
Okay, and we'll back it up to our Police Services Board to allow Chair of our Police Services Board, Councillor Jeffrey, to present the board's work.
Thank you, Clerk Almas, and to our Chair McLeod. So it's certainly my pleasure as Chair of the Collingwood Police Services Board to give you a highlight of our 2021 accomplishments. As you can see, there were many, and these are just a few, and also to expand upon our 2022 goals and priorities as a board. Firstly, in terms of our 2021 accomplishments, not on the slide is the fact that our previous detachment commander, Inspector Mary Shannon, took an opportunity at Central Region, which left a vacancy for a detachment commander. And so we had a process in which the chairs from each of the Town of Blue Mountains and Collingwood participated in the new appointment of the new detachment commander. And we were very pleased to welcome Inspector Loris Litcherson. He's been getting his feet under him and doing a terrific job for us as detachment commander. And so we do value his participation in that of Staff Sergeant Chris Mecker and other delegates as they're required at our meetings. I'd also like to mention Vice Chair Reverend Donna Wilson, and of course, Mayor Saunderson participates on this committee, and our two provincial appointments, Drew Rowe and Wilhelmine Scher. So lots of hours dedicated. So as I mentioned, we do collaborate with the Town of Blue Mountains Police Services Board on many things. In particular, we had the need to submit a joint submission to the Ministry of the Solicitor General to maintain our independent police services boards. We did endorse the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. We championed expanding the scope of the existing Community Services Officer to include bicycle liaison duties as part of the composition portfolio. And Staff Sergeant Mecker was really important in making that happen. And we supported putting a pride bench in front of the Collingwood detachment and spent $600 out of our meager budget. And we support an amendment to the current police services agreement for 1 year. And we worked on enhancement of youth education opportunities through OPP Kids program. And we expanded the program to include a local private school, which was really exciting. We expanded our ability to reach out to community groups and stakeholders. And we enhanced the approach to traffic enforcement and advocated speed safety concerns and harbor enforcement. And we continuously pivoted resources to match demands of the evolving COVID-19 situation. And our police service members went above and beyond in terms of the constant fluctuation of their enforcement duties with respect to the global pandemic and the provincial orders. And we recognize them for that excellent work. In terms of 2022, our communication protocol will be put into writing between the Police Services Board and Council. We certainly have one, but we would like to put pen to paper and have it formalized. We'll also have the implementation of the OPP Collingwood and Blue Mountains Detachment 2020-2022 action plan per the priorities provided by the Police Services Board. And the board is committed to focus on community safety through the implementation of the detachment action plan priorities with emphasis on traffic, mental health and drug support, youth engagement and dedication, diversity and human rights. And I know that the action plan is available in a lot more depth in terms of the priorities that our detachment is addressing on a daily basis. And I can assure you they are many and they are broad in their scope. So with that, I will leave my report at that. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I should also mention, we are also appreciative. We have such excellent staff support from the CAO and from the committee secretary, Stephanie. And again, this work really needs the foundation of what they put together for us to build on in our decisions. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I believe that is the end of that presentation. And so what I'm looking for is a motion that staff report C 2022-06, the annual report on local board activities specific to the Collingwood Public Library Board and Collingwood Police Services Board from 2021 and priorities for 2022 be herein received. And that I'm going to look at to Councillor Jeffrey and Berman respectively for the moving and seconding. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns, or queries from members of the council? I see none, and so we will thank you for your time and for the work that you two do on your respective boards. That brings us to item 11.2. Oh, clerk Almus, we probably should vote. I'll get it one of these days. So I'll call the question. Thank you. That passes unanimously. 11.2, the Collingwood Police Services Board minutes from January 17th of 2022 and 11.3, Collingwood Public Library Board minutes of January 27th, 2022. And would anybody like to pull either of these for a change in direction, or we're just moving to receive these? Yes, so I'll need a mover and a seconder to receive these. Again, Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Berman, and Councillor Hamlin would like to pull one. Which one is that, Councillor Hamlin?
It would be 11.2, please.
Thank you so much. And I think we pass these and then comment on them. Yes, thank you. So all of those in favor of the motion to receive these two sets of minutes? Thank you. That is unanimous. And Councillor Hamlin, you have comments on 11.2.
I just have a few questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. And looking through the minutes, I was wondering if someone who was at the meeting, perhaps it's our CAO or our chair, could just enlighten us about what the update was on the Starbucks situation that was presented at that meeting.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair McLeod, and through you to Councillor Hamlin. What I can do is assure the member of council and any member of the public watching this evening that work continues in the background on the Starbucks situation, and we're very aware of it, and everybody's working very hard on it. So that was the update.
There wasn't any. Okay, great. Thanks for.
And so with that, we'll move on to any follow-up, Councillor Hamlin, you're good? Thank you. Item 12, which is the standing committee report, and the standing committee, which feeds into this council meeting, is the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee. And there are several items that passed unanimously, and so I will be looking for a mover and a seconder in just a minute to move these, and they are item 12.1.1, and that is that council received the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee report from its meeting held February 7th, 2022, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented. And those are items C 2022-03, which is the Corporate and Community Services Board and Advisory Committee annual report. And the recommendation there is to receive the annual report on Corporate and Community Services Board and Advisory Committee's activities. Also, PRC 2022-01, the Recreation Access Program Policy, and the recommendation is to implement a pilot access to recreation policy and report back in 1 year. PRC 2022-02, the vessel operation restrictions regulations, and the recommendation is to establish vessel operation restriction regulations. CCS 2022 inclement weather -02, inclement weather and emergency conditions policy. The recommendation there is to adopt HR policy D-08, the inclement weather emergency conditions policy. We're also looking to receive the Trails and Active Transportation Committee minutes from January the 13th of 2022. And the recommendation there is to direct staff to look at appropriate mechanisms to ensure members of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee have an opportunity to comment on the program recommended by the Trails and Active Transportation Committee for the Maple Street Quiet Bicycle Friendly Quiet Street report, staff report. I put an extra quiet in there, I think, as referenced in the January 13th Trails and Active Transportation Committee minutes. And we do have a motion connected to this later on in this meeting. And so all of those passed unanimously at the committee. And so I will look for a mover and a seconder to receive those now. Councillor Berman and Councillor Doherty. And so with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that also passes unanimously. Are there any items from that that want to be discussed by any member of this council? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And really, this was just to make comment in regard to Recreation Access Program Policy, PRC 2022-01. And that was to congratulate staff for coming forward with such an initiative. We all know that there are certain members in our community who are challenged to participate in our various recreation and leisure activities, and there should be no detriment to their ability to do so. And so this was quite a positive move forward. And the other thing that I'll say, and this is just to plant the seed, and I may come forward with it at a later date, is assuming that we do embark on a program such that members of our community who cannot afford the cost to participate in various recreation activities, that would leave us perhaps with the ability to moderately increase the price of participation to all others. And that is not to say a huge increase, but as an example, the cost to swim at Centennial Pool as a senior is $3 and change. If a senior who was unable to afford that were able to avoid making that pay, not avoid, but apply to have that fee waived, then it seems to me that all other seniors may be able to consider paying, say, $4 or $5. Not a huge increase, but it does help to increase revenues to the department and to offset the cost. So this is just an observation right now, but I had to say it. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Doherty. Moving on to item 12.2, which is the Standing Committee report from the Strategic Initiatives Committee, which was held on February the 7th of 2022. And the items here are, again, those which passed unanimously, which are that Council is item 12.2.1. The Council received the Strategic Initiatives Committee report from its meeting held February 7th and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented, which includes the Simcoe County Regional Government Task Force, Regional Government Review Task Force, and that's the Fire Services Review. The recommendation there is to work with county representatives to develop recommendations as deemed appropriate with regards to the Fire Services Review. Also, report CAO 2022-01 regarding the interim control bylaw number 2021-024 exemption requests, commercial projects with no additional water capacity and accessory residential units. Again, these recommendations passed unanimously. And further, that the lands identified as 275 First Street and 115 here Ontario Street be exempt from the provisions of interim control bylaw number 2021-024 and added to the bylaw Schedule A for the purpose of establishing a medical clinic or office, optometry office and business office, respectively, with no additional water capacity allocation. And further, that the lands identified as 120 Hume Street and 9 Reed Crescent be exempt from the provisions of interim control bylaw 2021-024 and added to the bylaw Schedule A for the purpose of establishing accessory residential dwelling units with an additional water capacity allocation of 0.66 single detached unit equivalents for each of those properties. And further, that the rural lands identified as 2935 Concession 10 be exempt from the provisions of interim control bylaw number 2021-024 and added to the bylaw Schedule A for the purpose of establishing an accessory residential dwelling unit with no additional water capacity in recognition that municipal services are not available or anticipated in the near future and that limited rural residential growth is permitted in the applicable planning instruments. We're also accepting CAO 2022-02, which is the 2021 operational plan accomplishments and 2022 operational plan. And the recommendation there is to receive the report. We also have C 2022-04, which is in-person hybrid council and standing committee meetings. And the recommendation is to delegate authority to the clerk in consultation with the mayor and the CAO to amend the meeting participation and safety plan as deemed appropriate. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for all of the above. Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Berman. And are there questions, comments, or queries from members of council at this time? I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Which brings us to staff reports. And this again is from the Strategic Initiatives Committee, and that is CAO 2022-01, Interim Control Bylaw number 2021-024, exemption requests, commercial projects with no additional water capacity and accessory residential units. This did not pass unanimously, so that's why we're voting on it again. And further, that the lands identified as 58 here Ontario Street be exempt from the provisions of interim control bylaw number 2021-024. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to get that on the table. Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Hamlin. Questions, comments, queries? And so with that, I will call the question on item 12.2.2. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. And we have a bylaw from the Strategic Initiatives Committee for ratification, and that is bylaw number 2022-006, being a bylaw to amend interim control bylaw number 2021-024, be enacted and passed this 22nd day of February, 2022. May I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Hamlin and Councillor Berman. Any comments or questions? With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you so much. That passes unanimously. Item 13, staff reports. PW 2022-02, the 2021 water compliance report. To whom am I turning for this? Is there something to go with this staff report? I believe there is. Clerk Olmos?
Certainly, I can quickly speak to it. So this was a presentation at the DNO committee, and that it was being advanced forward. So if there's any additional questions from that presentation, Director Slama could address them this evening.
Oh, I see. Thank you so much. And so I will, I'll move to get this staff report on the table. I'll ask for a motion to get this on the table, and that is Councillor Hamlin. I'll need a seconder as well, please. And that is that staff report PW 2022-02, the 2021 annual water compliance report be received. The seconder was Councillor Berman. Questions, comments, queries for Director Slama? It would appear not. Thank you. And so with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Lovely, passed unanimously. Oh, there's two more clauses to this motion, aren't there? On the next page. Okay, so we will be posting the, I'll read those in and we will vote again to get it correct. And so it's that staff report PW 2022-02, the 2021 annual water compliance report we received, and that the report be considered at the February 22nd council meeting per the legislated deadline to meet the requirements of Ontario Regulation 170-03 drinking water systems, and the council direct staff to post the 2021 annual water compliance report on the town's website no later than February 28th, 2022. And that was moved by Councillor Hamlin, seconded by Councillor Berman. And now I will call the question, the entire question. All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Item 13.2, I believe that we have had some conversation or some, at least some information regarding this item during our interim control bylaw update. And so do we need a motion to defer this, Clerk Olmos, or shall we just defer it? We shall just defer it to the next meeting. And that brings us to item 4. Oh, Councillor Hamlin requests to speak.
I need a new mouse. Sorry. Oh, I have some concerns about deferring this, and we haven't had a discussion about what that means to defer it. And I was wondering how you'd like to handle this.
Sure. I will turn to Clerk Olmos.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair McLeod. I think it would be beneficial to put the motion on the floor, and then Director Valentine could speak to it, and then a motion to defer would be appropriate from there.
Perfect. And so I will be looking for a mover and a seconder, which is, and I see you, Councillor Jeffrey, P 2022-05, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment servicing capacity allocation framework for the town of Collingwood. And that is that this be received. And further, that Council enacts and passes an amending zoning bylaw attached as Appendix A to prohibit the use of land or the erection or use of buildings or structures unless adequate municipal water and wastewater services are available to service the land, buildings, or structures, except where development is permitted on private individual on-site water and wastewater systems and or for minor construction activities. And that bylaw number 2022-07 being a bylaw under the provision of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended, be enacted and passed this 22nd day of February 2022. So the mover is Councillor Jeffrey, and the seconder, I believe, is Councillor Berman. And I will turn to Director Valentine for some comments regarding some, I believe, new information, which will require this, or will possibly require a deferral. Director Valentine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in line with CAO Skinner's comments from earlier today, as Council will have seen in your inboxes as well as staff, we've received a number of comments on the zoning bylaw prong of the servicing capacity allocation framework. Some of those were legal considerations, which were forwarded to the town solicitor for their review. One of the components of the concerns that was deemed to have merit was potential confusion as to whether the land use planning policy study had in fact been completed, which is a requirement of the Planning Act to allow us to, or allow Council to consider and pass the zoning bylaw amendment. So it was considered desirable just to take that concern and potential future challenge off the table to confirm through a resolution at the next Council meeting that in fact the study has been completed and we're working on the 3 streams of implementation that Council approved in December of 2021. The second component is related to timing, and a number of the letters that we've received have indicated that members from the development community will be hinging their decision as to whether to appeal the zoning bylaw amendment on the content of one of the other prongs that we are advancing, which is the servicing capacity allocation policy. So it was also considered desirable to move the decision date on the zoning bylaw out by a week, which would allow the appeal period to overlap with Council's decision on that second prong. So that is the reason that staff are suggesting the deferral, and happy to answer any questions of the councillor.
Does that assist, Councillor Hamlin?
I do have some questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Director Valentine, I was under the understanding, and perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but our allocation framework is something that would be allowed under official plan and would not be appealable by anyone once it's in place. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. The policy component of the 3 prongs, being the servicing capacity allocation policy that would be approved by council, would not be appealable. However, the zoning bylaw amendment component would be appealable.
Yeah, but the zone, and because I'm just having some trouble, so I'm going to take you through this a bit. So, and we can change that allocation framework from time to time, and it's still not appealable. Is that also right? Okay.
Director Brown.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, as a policy of council would be able to amend it at any time through a transparent process.
Okay, and then again, through you, Madam Chair, the zoning bylaw that we're talking about is the one that says that you can't get a building permit until you've got servicing, and that is appealable. All right. So by holding up this zoning, but also I'm just going to say, and this is my comment part, every municipality in the province has that. It's a very typical kind of, of course you can't get we just haven't had it. So I don't understand why, and this is my question, I don't understand why we would be holding up our passage of the zoning bylaw to allow them to look at the allocation framework, because what I'm concerned about is people will not like certain parts of the allocation framework. Of course, we haven't seen it. I don't know what's in it, but let's assume every developer thinks some part of it doesn't suit him or her. So they will appeal our bylaw to put leverage on not having our allocation framework, approved. So we'll end up at the, Ontario Land Tribunal fighting about a zoning bylaw when really what they're fighting about is the allocation framework, which has nothing to do with the zoning bylaw. So, but it will hold everything up. It'll hold up our interim control bylaw getting finished, and we'll be into, I can see, a 3rd year of our interim control bylaw where everyone fights about their own internal fights over the allocation policy and how it affects their property. So I'm just worried about giving our development community that leverage, which they're not otherwise entitled to, because they're not entitled to have an appeal of our allocation framework, which by deferring this, we're giving them. So I'm just asking you, is that a valid concern that I have? Through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And to Director Valentine.
Through you, Madam Chair, there's really 2 concerns at play here. At first, the first concern is that those interested in the results of the capacity allocation policy and its content will appeal the zoning bylaw amendment if they don't know what that final version looks like. So that's what we're trying to avoid. But you're quite right that once they see the final version, there still could be individuals who remain displeased with the content and could appeal. So that risk really exists either way. We're just trying to mitigate at least one of the 2 components of that risk through deferring a decision on the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying. I think myself, the greater risk is we'll get more developers appealing once they can use it as leverage against the allocation policy. But anyway, I hear what you're saying, and thank you for the answers.
Thank you. And so this is on the table, and I'm looking, I believe that the suggestion is that we might need a motion to defer. And so I'm looking for if someone is interested in making that motion, Councillor Berman and Councillor Jeffrey. And so this will be deferred to our next meeting, which is next Monday, 6 days from now. Yes, I believe that is the date that we're looking at. Thank you so much. Clerkfulness, we probably have to vote on that. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. That passes. Motions on the table. Item number 14, which is and 14.1, which was regarding the Joint Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee governance structure. And Councillor Hamlin, I will turn to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, over the past 2 years, there has been a joint municipal physician recruitment and retention committee. It's been a committee of the town of Blue Mountains, and there's been representatives on it from various neighboring municipalities. And of course, I've been the representative for Collingwood. The Joint Committee has been successful in identifying a number of, well, I'll say 5 important issues for Collingwood. Firstly, the need for a regional approach. We've discovered that residents in a number of our surrounding communities access doctors in Collingwood, which has taken up a lot of the roster space for our doctors. There's over 3,600 residents in Collingwood who don't have family physicians, and this is information through the Ministry of Health. There's a high number of existing family doctors here in Collingwood who will be
Councillor
retiring.
Hamlin, sorry,
Yes?
a point of order on myself. I'll need you to read in your motion before you speak to it.
I would be happy to. Thank you. Okay, the council supports CAO Skinner in participating in discussions around the creation of a new governance structure that would include how Collingwood would be represented on an ongoing joint physician and recruitment endeavor.
Thank you. And I believe, so you're moving that and you're going to need a seconder in order to have it on the table. There's Councillor Berman. Now we're following the way things work. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So what I was just outlining the 5 reasons why such a committee is important. And the third one was we have a lot of family doctors who are going to be retiring. The fourth one is our expansive growth in population is going to exacerbate the problem. And lastly, of course, we discovered that that the family doctors were effectively prevented from setting up a new practice here. And of course, we had that dealt with at the Ministry of Health, and now we can actively recruit family doctors to our area. So as I mentioned, this committee's been one under the governance of the town of Blue Mountains. Because of the election that's coming up on the municipal level, the town of Blue Mountains is shutting down all its committees, including this one. And our joint committee really is of the view that the work of this committee should be free of the election cycles and of members on the committee who will perhaps come and go with the different elections. And so a format that many regions are using is to set up a different entity than just a committee that's under the umbrella of a municipality. So at one of our recent meetings, the Joint Committee passed a resolution to ask CAO Everett, who's with the town of Blue Mountains, to meet with the other regional CAOs and return to our committee with recommendations on the new governance model. And I'm just reading here, it's intended that the focus be on full regional participation, including stakeholders in the healthcare system. There would be representation from municipalities, but the entity would not be controlled by municipalities. At our last, when I read this motion in, I believe it was Cathy, Councillor Jeffrey, who had asked if we should be saying CAO or designate. I did ask her CAO, and she felt that the wording as proposed gives her the authority to have a designate if she so desires. So I was going to just suggest that I am happy with the wording, and I am happy to take any questions should anyone have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the council? It would appear everyone's questions are answered. And so with that, actually, you know what? I have a question, and that is to the CAO, as a matter of fact. Is this something to which you are amenable?
To you, Chair McLeod. Yes, absolutely. I think there's been some important work done by this committee, and I have no concerns with participating with CAO Everett and the other CAOs to look at options and provide them back to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would hate to give you more work in your already busy days. And so with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. We have a second motion on the table for, this is a motion actually provided by staff. It was an outcropping of the Community and Corporate Services meeting that was held earlier this month. And the motion, and I'm going to need do I need a mover and a seconder for that? Yes, I do. That council herein direct the upcoming staff report regarding the Maple Street Bicycle Priority Street Project to the Strategic Initiatives Standing Committee for Council discussion as it relates to the cycling plan and transportation and engineering. I will need a mover and a seconder for this motion. Councillor Berman and Councillor Jeffrey. Discussion regarding this motion. Councillor Doherty and Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just wanting to understand why this recommendation to move to SIC as because this is under the purview of transportation and engineering, that it should not fall under the purview, therefore, of development and operations.
Thank you. And to whom shall I direct that, or shall I answer it myself? Clerk Almas, thank you.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. I think this revolves around originally probably an error in our judgment when originally the Trails and Active Transportation presented as a delegation to the DNO regarding this project and wanting to champion this project and it falling more within the street closure component, the engineering components related to street closure versus truly the impact that this has on the cycling plan and how that incorporates items within that cycling plan. So it was felt that because of the minutes that were contained in the Corporate and Community Services, did note that that report had been shared with the Trails and Active Transportation Committee already, that the Corporate and Community Services should have an opportunity to speak to it. And in accordance with our mandates for our various terms of reference for our standing committees, a motion was needed to actually place this on an SIC. We didn't want it to go to each committee and both committees report back with different recommendations. So it was felt that it would be appropriate to have a fulsome discussion at the next SIC meeting.
Does that assist, Councillor Doherty?
Very much so. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if the upcoming staff report will be provided to our Active Transportation Committee and whether we'll get their comments through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I can answer that actually, because the staff report has been presented to the Trails and Active Transportation Committee, which is why we're having this conversation. It was contained, the report itself was not contained, but mention of the report and the comments and the fact that they had made comments about it back to staff was contained in minutes that came to CNCS committee. And that's why we find ourselves here at this juncture at this moment.
So I guess my question then is, will their comments be included in the upcoming staff report?
That I will turn to Director Slama.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. Through you to Councillor Hamlin, yes, they will.
Does that assist?
That's great. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Any other questions on this issue? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Which brings us to item number 15, which is bylaws. And this is a 2-pager as well. Bylaw 15.1, be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-008, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Board of Management for the Downtown Collingwood Business Improvement Area, BIA, be enacted and passed this 22nd day of February 2022. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that bylaw. Councillor Berman and Councillor Doherty. Questions or comments from the floor? Seeing none. Yes, Clerk Almas, would you like to speak to this?
Certainly, I'll just quickly jump in to give a sincere thanks and regrets that we had to accept the resignation of Brandon Houston and Cassie McKell. They were dedicated volunteers on that board, and they have very busy businesses that they're operating, and it was a very positive experience, and unfortunately they've had to resign, but we do have some great candidates that the BIA Board of Management is putting forward for Council's consideration, being Chris Brackle and Siobhan Riordan. And those two individuals, Chris is the owner-operator of F45, the fitness studio on, I believe it is St. Marie Street, and Shay is the owner of Shea Organics on Ontario Street. So they were pleased to add members to their board and get other interested areas within the BIA represented, not just here Ontario Street.
There we go. Any other questions or other comments from the floor? Excellent. Seeing none, then I will call the question. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Notices of motion, have we any? Excellent. Which brings us to the county report. Hey, that's me. Item number 17. My sciatica is unhappy to tell you, but I am happy to tell you that I attended County Council this morning. The one thing I want to tell you the most about this meeting was that we got an update from the folks who are in charge of solid waste management about the cart exchange program. And of course, we know there was quite a hue and cry about the size of the recycling bins and the trash bins that were delivered to all of us over the course of the summer, and some consternation about whether they were appropriate for all homes. And so county councillors decided to accelerate a plan that would allow people to exchange their carts rather sooner than had been anticipated. And there has been an uptake, although much smaller one than had been expected. So 3.5% of county residences have asked for an exchange, and that works out to 5,600 homes right across the county. And that's actually much lower than had been expected. So I think it's turning out that that some of the concerns, or some people have found a way to deal with their carts. And so that is good news from a tax point of view, because exchanging the carts is expensive to county ratepayers. So those who have asked for a new cart, a smaller cart, they have been delivered or are in the process thereof to the county. And you can expect delivery of them in the next 10 days or so. They are expecting them to be delivered the first week of March. And when one puts in to ask for a different cart, there's contact information that is provided, and you will be warned or advised that they're coming to deliver your new cart, because of course it's an exchange situation. And so they'd like you to be there to hand over the old cart and receive the new one. So that is the county report for this morning. Other things were discussed, but I can't tell you about them. So item 18, which is the consent agenda. Not to make light of that, there was an extensive in-camera session today, and someday you will know what happened there. Item 18, the consent agenda, general consent items, and the motion is that council herein receive the general consent agenda, and further that the information and opinions provided in the general consent agenda items are those of the authors and are not verified or approved as being correct. And we have 5 items. 18.1, which is the clock tower illumination for anti-bullying week. The flag is being raised tomorrow, as mentioned earlier in this meeting, and the clock tower will be illuminated pink starting tomorrow night until March the 2nd. Proclamation of Green Jacket Day for February 26th. 18.3, Patricia Foreign on behalf of 255-4281 Ontario Limited. That is connected to staff report P 2022-05, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment serving capacity allocation framework. 18.4, which is various authors regarding dissolving the Ontario Land Tribunal and and some items pulled from the correspondence list by Councillor Doherty, including correspondence from the Township of Front of Young, Sarnia, and Halton Hills. And also item 8.5, correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding Municipal Housing Affordability Summit. And that has also been pulled from the correspondence list by Councillor Doherty. So two of these items have already been pulled. First of all, we'll call the question, and then we will have discussion regarding these items. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hamlin, Councillor Jeffrey. And are there any other items that any members of council would like to pull? Seeing none, Councillor Doherty, item 18.4.
Did you want to vote just to receive the consent?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course we do. Yes. All those in favor. And that passes unanimously. Now, Councillor Doherty.
Okay, thank you. 18.4 is actually 3 resolutions from 3 different municipalities to dissolve the Ontario Land Tribunal. And I'll give you just a bit of background. Back in 2015, there was a move initiated by then Councillor Tom Marakis from the town of Aurora for OMB reform. And there was a group, working group of some 50 municipalities or representatives of municipalities that got together and hammered out a very comprehensive white paper, which was delivered to the Ministry, Municipal Affairs and Housing, and to AMO, recommending many reforms to OMB. Some of which we actually saw in the iteration of LPAT, the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. Those had to do with increasing the authority or recognition of the authority of the local planner and planning authority, and also protecting the rights of citizens in an appeal scenario. More recently, with the changes that have come in the Municipal Act and in the Conservation Authorities Act, the province has advanced the notion of modifying the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal to what we now know as the Ontario Land Tribunal. In effect, by name as well as by function, in removing some of the influence of the local planning authority and local residents. A number of municipalities, I understand some 50, are entertaining this motion at the present time. I have done some homework. I have spoken with our Director of Planning and other planners in our municipality, and have come to the conclusion that it may be premature to call for the direct dissolution of the Ontario Land Tribunal. It is a new body. It is intended in principle anyway to uphold good planning practice and to uphold the authority of the local planning body and local official plans. There is reference in the motion of Ontario being the only jurisdiction that has a specific planning adjudicative body, and that is true. However, there actually are some provinces who are exploring the notion of introducing some sort of a provincial tribunal, because it gives, it provides the opportunity for the community and the development community to appeal matters that are strictly having to do with planning. So to have to relegate any changes, or sorry, any appeals to matters of law alone may actually wind up being slower and being more costly than the system we have right now. However, I do think that it is worth monitoring. And I think in particular, when we see what has been put forward by the Ontario Municipal Housing Affordability Summit, that we may want to keep a very close watch on the Ontario Land Tribunal. So that is what I will say about that. So then moving on to item 18.5, which is the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Municipal Housing Affordability Summit. This has been recently put forward by the province, and it is really most unfortunate that we received this letter a scant week before the paper was to be delivered to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So it did not give the municipality the opportunity to respond. However, there are, it certainly purports to answer the need for more housing. But in my view, it has an inherent weakness in that it has removed the entire notion of affordability from that equation. So simply to create more housing does not necessarily answer the immediate need of people who do not have housing because they cannot afford housing. The other concern that I will mention about the recommendations in that paper are the powers that it purports to give to the ministry and indirectly to the Ontario Land Tribunal. It will reduce.
Councillor Doherty, I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment. I believe you've run out of your 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
You did have 2 topics. Is it 5 minutes each?
Yeah.
So if I can get you to wrap up in the next minute or so.
Yes, I
fantastic.
will. Okay, so then I'll leave that part, and I will say that AMO has also put forward a white paper. It has just been published, and it has 90 recommendations to address the Ontario housing crisis, and it does cover a broad range of issues, including affordability and community size and geography and ethnicity and infrastructure. So it is, in my view, a much more fulsome approach to affordable housing, and you can certainly access that document on the AMO website. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. And that brings us to item 19. So we have accepted all those items on the consent agenda. Item 19 now is old or deferred business. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. Just through you to the clerk, I had a resident asking me about our reference to having the proposed wording for the bylaw regarding the absence of the mayor and deputy mayor to perhaps hit the February cycle. I think we all knew that was ambitious, but they're keen to have public input, and I assured them that it would come up perhaps for the March SIC. Just need that clarified. Thank you.
Clerk Almas, can you speak to this?
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey, through the chair. So it was actually vetted today by department heads and will be hitting the, I believe, SIC agenda on the 7th.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other old or deferred business? I have one item actually, which relates back to our community announcement regarding Pink Shirt Day tomorrow. And I was very neglectful because I was expecting to ask Fire Chief Parr to put on a bit of a fashion show. And I neglected to do so. And so I would like to invite Fire Chief Parr, if he happens to still be with us in this meeting, to show us his, well, I'm not sure, what are these epaulettes, Fire Chief Parr, that are pink for anti-bullying?
Through you, Chair, yes, they are. They was designed and supplied to me by a local company for tomorrow, and I thought I'd wear them tonight in support and then have them on all day tomorrow also.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see the big burly guys who save us are also against bullying. So thank you so much. And I apologize for my neglect earlier today. Is there, that brings us to item 19.2. I think I see no other old or deferred business. So item 19.2 is other business. Is there any other business? Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I believe this is a question for Director Culver. One of our residents has asked me, which is, has our town had the opportunity to look into the possibility of having silent fireworks used in our town? Thank you.
Thank you. And so I will direct that to, I will speak slowly so that Director Culver can gather his thoughts on this issue and provide an answer. Have we turned our mind to the issue of, and I think this actually might affect the fire chief as well, since they're the ones who received the complaints. Director Culver, have we turned our mind to silent fireworks?
Thank you, Chair. And actually, Councillor Hamlin had given me a heads up, so I am a little bit more prepared than I otherwise might be for the question. So we have contemplated, we've heard about anecdotally about silent fireworks, and I should put that in quotation marks, because what we've also heard from colleagues across the country is that there really is no such thing as silent fireworks. They're explosive by nature, which means they come with some sound attached. Quieter fireworks, we've found, again, anecdotally and through discussions amongst my colleagues and peers, that they can be unsatisfying in terms of reduction of noise, depending upon where they're used, the proximity to residents and whatnot. So what we actually have done over the past few years, staff have been investigating the possibility of using drones for aerial light shows versus fireworks. There's a realm of possibilities associated with this, and we may, depending on grant funding this year, be able to explore this in an event this year, but again, subject to grant funding. There is an additional expense associated with it. It's obviously, when you're talking about anywhere from 100 to 400 robots flying through the air, you can imagine how expensive it might get. But if you look on anything from YouTube to popular websites, you can see how cool and effective it can be at providing a similar entertainment value to fireworks. So staff have been working on it. Again, looking at funding options that would help us to explore it a little more deeply. You may find in a future council year at budget time that we're in front of you asking for appropriate funding to support that, because we do know of the concerns associated with the noise of fireworks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other business from members of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 20, which is the confirmatory bylaw. And that is bylaw number 22-09, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held February 22nd, 2022 be enacted and passed this 22nd day of February 2022. And I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Berman, seconded by Councillor Hamlin. I don't believe we're going to need any discussion on that. So we will call the question. All those in favor? That passes unanimously, which brings us to item number 21, adjournment. I see you, Councillor Jeffrey. Thank you so much. All those in favor of adjournment at 6:55 p.m. You didn't even hear the time before you said yes. That passes unanimously as well. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Have a great night.
Great job.